Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Game Emporium and Top of the Box, where some friends have gathered around the table to talk about board games. And we are doing the thing that everyone does at least once a year. We are ranking our games once again.
Are we doing it in a weird time? When did we do it last time? It was about May, wasn't it? May, April? So it was
Last time, the first one we did it in... I did my list in March. We actually didn't get around to doing the run-through until May because you were busy. And then we ended up ranking it sort of like May, and then it took us a long time to do it. This time, we're doing things differently. First of all, my name's Luke, that's Ross, if you haven't seen us before.
Okay.
And we are doing our top 50 games of all time again, revitalised for this year. It definitely needs a refresh, because, I don't know about you, I've played a lot of new games this year.
I played a lot of games more consistently as well, I think, this year.
Which has made a bit of a difference. I've gotten 18 new entries into my top 50.
I wasn't ready to bring the stats. I can do it really. I got 24 new entries.
So this is going to be some interesting stuff that we're going to be talking about. And then we've had more games that have shifted around. We were just talking about this before we started recording. Some stuff has dropped dramatically. Some things have risen quite spectacularly because we've actually played them again and we've enjoyed them more. We've played them again and we've actually gone, I've seen this.
Yeah.
So there's a few casualties.
The big switch up, again, if you go watch the videos from last time, I think I opened up those videos with this statement, which is this was a list of games that I really wanted to play rather than I'd absolutely loved, actually, because at that point, I think I was kind of on that tipping point about the friend group, basically, and who I was playing with, and going from that party game to more like, strategy games. And so I had a bunch of games just like, I'm reminiscing about playing this game, or I really want to play this game. So I think it's going to be a more realistic list for games that I quite enjoy playing in the last 18 months or so, probably.
Yeah, something like that. I can hear some lawn mowing going on outside, which is annoying, but we'll have to just deal with that. So hopefully it won't be too bad for you guys. So yeah, this is going to be our top 50 list. We're going to be doing this. Last time we did these as batches of 10, and we did 5 videos of 10. This time we're going to be breaking them down because we have a little bit more time to do it, and also to make it nicer watching for you guys, effectively. We're going to do them as batches of 5. So this first video is going to be our 50 to 46, and then you may notice that the next one will be wearing exactly the same clothes, and that's just because we're going to keep talking and go into our...
For continuity, we need to just always wear the same clothes, right?
Always wear the same clothes. Just to confuse them. Yeah. So that's where we're going to be. So let's get into it with our first games of this list. I'm excited. Let's see where we go with this one.
Me too.
My number 50 is a deck builder game, which has risen from... Actually, it's fallen a little bit from where it was last time, but that's probably because so many other games have come in to go above it. So overall, if you took those new games out, it's actually gone up slightly. It's a bit of a weird thing. But it is a classic deck building adventure game where you have a deck, you're building it, and there's a board. This is Clank. Clank, one of those classic games that I hadn't played until some point last year. You still haven't played it, as far as I know.
And I would love it as well, but I still haven't played it.
I feel like you would. I feel like you really would. I feel like you would get stuck in a rabbit hole with Clank, and you would be like, Clank Catacombs, Clank in Space, all the expansions, everything. Clank is a game where you are going into a dungeon, you're trying to get treasure, prove that you are worthy adventurers, and trying to sneak around without waking up the dragon. Every movement that you do can cause you to put Clank into a bag, which means that when the end of the turn comes, you have to draw Clank out of the bag, which may enrage the dragon to come attack you, and it's a countdown to your health, effectively. So the longer you're in the dungeon, the more treasure you might get, the more valuable treasure you might get, and get victory points for it. But the dragon might get you, which is bad. And if the dragon gets you, it's a real problem. And there's a race element, because you can get out first, and then you can just cause a timer for everyone else. The longer you're there, the more the Clank will come out, and the more likely the dragon is to get you whilst you're in the two parts of the thing. You've got the deep, and then you've got the sort of just the entry to the dungeon, right? If you're caught when you're in the deep, you lose, you get nothing. But if you get partway out, then you are going to still score some points from your treasure. You're just not going to get the hooray, I escaped bonus points. And it's a little bit of that push your luck with a classic deck building mechanism that is just really nice and smooth. It's outbeat Dominion, which was quite high for me in terms of a classic deck building game. I have another one which is higher up, but for me, Clank's just great. It's good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice.
That's it for
Cool.
me. You can't say anything because you've not played it. So
I've not played it. I cannot participate in this conversation. Other than to
put it
say,
on the list.
Put it on the playlist, yeah. Other than to say, yeah, I think it's probably one I would quite like, just not go around to. Cool, okay. Well, mine, maybe not that exciting, I don't really know. My number 50 is Automobiles, which I played a lot digitally. I think we've played once.
We have played it. I didn't enjoy it. I seem to remember.
Which is basically a bag builder, is probably the way to describe it. You're purchasing cubes, putting them in a bag, you draw some out of each turn. The cubes represent different gears that you can shift to, and essentially that means you can race around the track depending on what gears you have available to you. Depends on how fast you can go around corners, etc. It's been something I've been quite enjoying, kind of a little bit here and there on BGA. And it's got a good like Grand Prix kind of style play where you can basically continue the bag over into the next race, which means that sometimes when you're speeding around corners, your car takes wear, which essentially means it just like clogs up your bag of cubes, essentially. But you're carrying those over between races, so you can't just flat out try win one. You still got to manage the wear a little bit as you're going across. So like you say, one that you probably weren't I don't know, hugely enthralled by, but yeah, it's quite a good one just to sort of a little bit play on the side and stuff. So
yeah, I feel like it's probably one that I would enjoy if I had it physically. I think it would be one that I would prefer, because then I love the bag builders. Bag builders are quite good fun, and being able to do that whole like Grand Prix mechanism would probably be a lot more fun. It's quite old at this point.
Yeah, it is, and I think because if I ever spot a copy in like a bring and buy, it'll probably be something I'd pick up. But I'm also not necessarily trying to hunt down, a copy of it either. So.
No, although you have now got a great big space.
I do. You can see it. It's staring. I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5. I'm not even looked at my back. I've got maybe like 8 board games just set on my floor, so they're going to be filled. They just haven't. I need to do a bit of a rearrange, to be honest. But yeah, my great big Castles of Burgundy hole now in my shelf.
Well, we'll see what happens with that one. All right, so that's our number 50s. Let's go to 49.
So I've got one which has dropped 20. I've got one which has dropped 22 places, and is I think I've previously described as a bit of a classic, and I think even one which would never leave my collection. If you throw back to the video that we've recorded recently, so here you go. Luke, do a little plug somewhere, Luke. Is Mysterium. So I think it's still worthy of being in the top 50. Absolutely. Do I get to play it as frequently as I once did? Not really. Would I maybe play Mysterium Park instead because it's a slightly smaller footprint? Potentially. But like I say, it does exactly what I want to do when I'm introducing someone to what could be different in board games. So very quick, if you don't know, one of you is a ghost. Everyone else is what's the word I'm after?
Mystics. They're psychics.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the actual. Anyway, so it's kind of a Cluedo or Clue, I guess. Kind of whodunit sort of person, weapon, and location. They're trying to give picture clues to individuals. You're all working as a team to try to figure out how the ghost basically died, the person who's giving the clues. But yeah, again, it's guys because co-op. It's nice because it's different from a typical board game, and you can get people on board. So
Mysterium's one of those games. I don't know where it is on my list. It's probably not. It's definitely not in the top 50. It's probably somewhere in the hundreds. And that's probably something else we should mention is that we did cull quite a lot of games when we were doing our top lists. Like we kind of went, these are games that we don't want to bother wasting our time space on. So there's quite a few. There's a shorter version of our list then from last year. So I was like 300 games last time. I've now got 170-ish. So Mysterium's in there somewhere. But yeah, it's a good game. It's one of those that is pretty much a modern classic, I think, because it is a very good. This is what board games are. You know Cluedo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, right?
It's a good choice. It's a good game. Yeah. My number 49, less so of a modern classic, but also had a little bit of decline from last year, is The Red Cathedral. So this is actually, I think it's the only De Vere game that I enjoy at the moment. So I wasn't really hot on the White Castle. I wasn't really hot on Salton Sea when I played them. But the Red Cathedral is one that really did bring De Vere games onto the map. So basically you have a rondel in the middle of the board, and you are going to be taking a die and triggering its power and moving it around the board based on the number of pips it's got. And you're trying to build up this cathedral by trading in resources and adorning it with these wonderful jewels and all sorts of things. The value of the dice causes it how far it moves, but the colour of the dice will link back to your workshop, which will have little bonus tiles that trigger when you activate that dice. You can choose to move the red die 3 places, gain the resource that's there, but your one also says that you specifically trigger the white dice. You get the benefit of the white die. But you also get multipliers of the resources that you gain for how many dice are in that location. So if you have 2 dice when you plop the red one in there, you'll trigger it multiple times and get the benefits from it, which is quite nice. It's a good little game. It's got 2 different score tracks. So you've got your reputation and your prestige. You want to go up on the prestige track because it gives you some big jumps at the beginning, and then it becomes smaller and smaller jumps at the end. But the reputation can be manipulated. The prestige can be manipulated to get you more coins. And you can just do nice big jumps if you do the prestige track. I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Laura and I played it relatively recently, and it's just good. It's just a good, thinky Euro game in quite a small box. Takes up a surprising footprint, and annoyingly, the expansion won't ever fit into the base game box because the expansion is also full to the brim, and the box is full to the brim. So it's a good one. It's a lot of fun. You haven't played it yet either. So it's a strong start for me. Games Ross hasn't played. Maybe I'll keep a count this time on how many games we
we literally had this conversation, was it last night? Where you were saying you played way more games than I have now, probably, and this is kind of just evidencing that, really, to be fair. So
I'm going to keep a track of the end of this of what is on the list that we should play. That's what I should play that's on your list, and what you should play that's on my list. And we'll see what
I think they'd be short.
Anyway. It may well be. That is our number 49, so let's get to 48. My number 48 is my biggest drop that has remained within the top 50. This was my number 6 last time around, and this is Final Girl.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Final Girl has dropped a considerable chunk. Final Girl is a solo-only game where you are playing as the final girl in a horror scenario, running around doing different things to rescue bystanders, get some loot. You've got dice rolling in there to trigger the actions that go into it, and trying to kill the big evil bad, essentially. It's one of the games that I had in my challenges of playing basically 20 different games of it throughout it, but playing everything that I had on there. And I think that's probably what has dropped it down so much. It's not that I haven't enjoyed playing it. I think it's just I've overplayed it in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of fatigue of, okay, well, I could go and play this because I've got some time to play it on my own. I could go off and do some other things. So, it's not that it's a bad game in any stretch of the imagination. This is still, it's 48. It's still in my top 50. And it will probably come back up once I've had a little bit of time away from it and just had a bit of, seeing what else is out there.
Yeah.
And maybe when the Season 3 Kickstarter delivers, there's more stuff that will arrive for it, and I can just go, ooh, fun, and just dive back into it. But for now, I think there's just other games that have taken priority over it. And again, board games is a very social thing, right, for me. So playing a solo-only game, I think I would probably enjoy it if I could play it 2-player. If I could figure out some way of doing it co-op. Maybe 2 boards, or we both had our different actions, or whatever. I'd need to figure it out. But just being able to discuss what I'm doing would probably make it a little bit more enjoyable.
Well, it makes it more satisfying, doesn't it, really? When you can, even when you're playing a game, which, is technically like 2 solo, you're basically, any roll and write almost, where you're playing the same set but not necessarily interact with each other. The fun of that is you can be like, I've scored 20 points off this thing, and I've maximized my usage of these cards better. But you can't really do that if you're on your own. You can give yourself a little high five or whatever, but it's not really the same, is it? So
yeah, exactly. The dice always never do exactly what you want to do anyway. So it's very easy to just go, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to do something else, and therefore it didn't affect it here. So it's just me. I'm not really affecting it. But it's still a very good game. I still really enjoy it. I still enjoy playing through the different sets. I just haven't played it in a little while because I did a lot at the beginning of the year, and other stuff has come up and I've wanted to play that more.
Yeah, fair.
So that's just where it is now. These lists are fluid, as clearly evidenced by last year's list, where these are quite wildly different. So we'll see where Final Girl ends up in the future.
Yeah,
wherever it may be.
I suspect it'll creep back up for you, probably, but
probably, yeah. I do really enjoy it.
Interestingly, my number 48 also has taken quite a big drop. So it was number 8 last year, and that's Distilled. So I still think it's a good game. I just there's just other games I'd rather play. I think that's the way to phrase it, right? It like, and if anyone says, "Hey, do you want to play this game?" Yeah, sure, absolutely, I'll play some Distilled. But in comparison, when I was flicking through the options, a bit like, well, I'd rather play this, or I'd rather play that, or whatever it is. So Distilled is basically you're running a
Is it? Well, it's
distillery.
Distillery.
Specifically. And so you're each playing as kind of a character, typically from an area of the world. You have your own special spirit that you're creating. There's other spirits available to you. You've got a market in front of you, which has like special tools you can upgrade your area with. You can buy some different special ingredients, and then essentially what you're doing is you're pulling all the ingredient cards together, giving them a good shuffle, removing the top and bottom one, essentially distilling it, and then whatever you've got left is the spirit that you've created, which you can then either age over time to score more victory points and add some flavor cards to it, or you sell at that point or later for more or less money and all this sort of stuff as well. And then the person with the most points wins, unsurprisingly. So I quite like the thematics of the way that you manage the deck. I have some frustrations mostly around the market. I find that quite annoying when you can't necessarily get the ingredient you want to do, and I wish there was a better way of manipulating it. You can buy a certain ingredient which lets you essentially look at the top card of the deck and choose whether you want to buy that or not. But when you've got 40, I don't even know how many there are, 40 cards in the deck, there's not a lot of control over that, which can be quite frustrating. So, but yeah, like I say, it's still good thematic game, and thematic games will always be a bit of a winner for me, I think.
Yeah, it's one that I need to play physically, and I think it's one that I've only played it on Tabletopia and Board Game Arena, and you don't get that same feel of the card play, which is the main thing on it. Yeah. It didn't really hit for me. That said, it's not my theme.
Yeah.
Right? I don't drink, so I'm talking to Alan about this. Like, he's quite happy to sit down and play it whilst drinking whiskey or something, and sort of enjoying it that way. Which is fine, that probably leans into the theme, makes it quite an enjoyable experience. That's not an option for me because I don't. So it's not necessarily going to be something I'm going to seek out. And as I say, there are other games I would rather play than this. And it's kind of the one thing that frustrates me about it is market as well, is that although the character is designed to give you a focus, you end up exclusively going for the liqueurs of that kind. There's 0 point in doing any sort of variety.
Yeah.
Which is a little boring after a while.
The only reason why I think I split off on the variety was because the problem I mentioned where I didn't have the ingredients available to me on that market. Yeah. So I had to then change. But then you've got to tee up so much other bits before you get there. You make sure you have like the right barrel to store it, or the bottle you're going to sell it in, or whatever it may be. That by the time you've done all of that, those cards might have cycled out anyway, and you've just wasted. You've got to buy the recipe right, all these sort of things. So, yeah,
bit of a nightmare. Cool. Well, that's our number 48. So let's look at 47.
My 47, a smaller game actually that has kind of crept up a little bit. Was it kind of on the top 100 maybe instead? It's King Domino. So again, a game I quite like playing on BGA. I've picked up a copy with the Queen Domino and a few of the other expansions and all those other bits. It's a game that I play with my son, where it's matching the terrain types all together and stuff. But yeah, just a nice. I'm trying to get a better balance of types of games, so I don't end up only playing heavy strategy games. And King Domino really kind of fits that. I need a quick game that I can play, basically. So, so I keep doing this. I love talking about games and less explaining the games. you're basically drafting some tiles that you're putting down into your kingdom. You're trying to connect same types of terrain together in order to score points, and there's kind of like a multiplier on that depending on the whether there's a marker on those terrains or not. So
Crown.
Quick game, simple game, lovely game.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. It's very easy to do. Your particular copy did irritate the heck out of me whilst I was trying to find it at Aircon.
Yeah.
Because it was listed as King Domino with Queen Domino and expansion.
And then it was in the Queen Domino box.
And it was in the Queen Domino box. And it was just a case of, well, that's just unhelpful.
Yeah.
I eventually found it. It's fine. I like King Domino. King Domino is a good little game. It was a good one to introduce Laura to. I think it's a very easy game to get onto a table and just go, hey, let's just play a game for 20 minutes. Here's how this works. And it's pretty straightforward of just make sure that like terrain matches one of the two sides, big areas, crowns if you can find them.
Yeah.
I like the draft system in this as well, that you've got the lower the number is, the less valuable it's going to be, but it means you get the initiative on the next draw, so you could potentially get a big scoring tile next turn, or you could just build out your area, so it can get quite interesting. Nice. My 47 is... It's dropped a little bit from last time, but I think, again, it's just because of games that have come in above it more than anything else. I do still really enjoy it. This is Decorum.
Nice, yeah.
So Decorum is a passive-aggressive cooperative deduction game. You just look and see where it is on your list.
Yeah, I don't know if it is... it's probably just floating somewhere outside. Carry on, sorry, I'll just see if I can hunt.
Yeah, so it's a passive-aggressive cooperative deduction game where you are putting down... You're basically furnishing a house, and you're going to put out these little icon tiles of the 4 different styles. You've got different colours and different rooms, and you've got to try and match certain conditions with each other. And the fun of the game is that on your turn, you'll either take one out, put one in, or switch two around and go, okay, well, that's in there for me. And you ask your partners, whoever else you're playing with, how do you feel about that? And they'll go, I don't love it. It's not great. It's the intent of the game is that you say whether you like it, you hate it,
somewhere in
or
between,
whether you're neutral on it. And you can really lean into that roleplay element of it, which is quite good fun. Two things that have really benefited this game is that there has been the release of the app, which just gives you a whole bunch of scenarios. Yeah. The base game comes with a big 2-player stack of scenarios, 3 and 4-player stack of scenarios, which are basically the 3 and 4s. You just play both of those, but you just divvy out the 4th player if there is only 3 of you. And the most recent expansion that's come out, which is the Moving Out expansion, which is just a whole list of 2-player scenarios. So it's kind of leaning more towards just a 2-player game, which I think is probably where it's best.
Yeah.
But it gives you vehicles that you can put your stuff into and bubble wrap and all sorts of boxes and stuff that you just have to add that little extra layer of puzzliness into. It's a fun little game. It's inoffensive, it's fun, it usually gets some form of giggle. Yeah. I enjoy it. It's just good fun.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy it. I think I've only really played it 3-player, I think, because Laura and I have only ever really played it together. But I could see how a 2-player could be better. I found it the game we played was quite long, actually, and I think it's because we were almost rotating the changes as we were going, which eventually meant we got there, but it was much slower. Because you do something I didn't like, but I'd have to tweak something else anyway. Then Laura would maybe move the thing that you'd done, and then you'd move the thing that I'd done, and then we just keep going around. And eventually one of us has to break the cycle and just correct the other person. But you get that more instantaneously in a 2-player game because you'd be correcting obviously back and forth right until you got to the point. But so nice. Okay, it's good. Yeah,
it's a fun little game. So cool, that is 47, so let's go to the last one of this video, number 46. My 46 is the first new game on this list.
Nice.
And it's another smaller one. It is a roll and write, and it is possibly the most rolliest and the most writiest of the games that will appear on these and write games.
Yeah.
This is Roll to the Top Journeys.
Oh, nice, yeah.
It's a silly little roll and write game where you are basically set out with a board and it depicts a landmark. So in this one, you've got things like the Eiffel Tower, the Pyramids of Giza, that sort of thing. You are going to roll this handful of polyhedral dice, pretty much a whole D&D set, as well as an additional D4, which will do some other things, D6, but it does some other stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But you roll the dice, and you fill in the numbers that you choose to on there. Starting from the bottom, and the way that you fill it out is that once you have built the two numbers directly below it, you can build one above it. So kind of building in that pyramid style. But you can only build above if you filled in the row below, and if it's a number that's equal to or low or higher than the numbers below it. So if you've written 2 1s, you could write a 1 above it. But if you've written a 1 and a 3, it has to be a 3 or higher that goes above that area. And what makes this game interesting is the addition of the black d6, which basically gives you extra options at the start of the turn. The active player will roll dice and see what that does. It will either remove a die from play before you roll them, it will add in a new die, or it'll swap some die from the active pool. So you could potentially go, oh, I can see that Ross only wants low numbers. I'll take the D4 out. So he has to deal with the D20, which means that if he wants to write a number in, it's going to have to be anything on a D20. So it could be between 1, it could be 20. Or he'll have to choose not to write anything, which will slow his game down a little bit. We have played a lot of this, and I think I sniped you in buying the copy that I found.
Yes, you did.
Which was quite funny. There's an expansion that's just come out as well that I've seen, which is I think it's like £12 for just more maps.
Yeah.
Which I will probably get at some point. It's just a good little game because you can just go, okay, here's a map for everyone. Off we go, and it's a roll and write. So it's just you've got 6 laminate sheets. If you have another copy, everyone can play with the same dice rolls.
Yes.
It's pretty easy and easy to explain. You can teach it in 5 minutes, get playing, and be done like 20 minutes later. Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy it. My fear, I guess, around it is, does it get a bit repetitive in the sense of, what's how deep is the strategy? I know it's meant to be quite a light game, but you still want some sort of feel like you've got a bit of control over it. And we talked about this before. I think the use of the black die, adding or removing dice, does that. But it's really dependent on the players doing different strategies in that instance. Otherwise, if we're both kind of doing similar strategies, I'm going to be removing or not the die is not really going to have as much of an influence on you maybe as it could. But really good. Yeah, it's one of the really good roll and writes.
And because you have the choice, you don't have to use all of the numbers.
Yeah.
But you also have, if you start getting into your higher numbers, you can add all the numbers together, which does make I wonder if an expansion will have it so that you could subtract the numbers.
Yeah, maybe.
That might be the other way that you could do it. But it's just that you have to choose either or. But who knows? We'll see how that goes eventually. But yeah, that's my 46. Roll to the top. Journeys.
My 46 is, I think, roughly where it was last year. Maybe a little bit lower, maybe. And that's because, again, like I said at the beginning, these are some of the games that I was kind of looking forward to playing last year, and I then played and then kind of maybe aligned better on where they are. But it's Dice Miner. So it's a game that we quite frequently play together, actually. Kind of kind of typically our filler game, really. Actually, I don't think that's wrong to say.
Filler game, yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. It is a filler game.
But I mean, more specifically, our filler game. Like if we're looking for a filler game, like on a bigger game day, that's the one we tend to gravitate towards and play. I really enjoy it. So you've got almost like a literal mountain of dice. So they've got a little standee to hold them. You basically roll them, put the dice onto this standee, and you take it in turns to take dice from there. Depending on the value that you take, depends on what you can kind of do with those dice. Whether you get some magic to hold the dice later on, or if you can trade yourself from dragons, or watch out for rock falls, or take some treasure, or whatever it may be. You can cheers, which is quite a fun thing. We've got a little thing you pass the dice over to the other person, but that means you get to do a bit of extra stuff. So I mean, again, it's a really good filler game. Very thematic again, in the sense of the way that they do the mountain and the stuff. And yeah, I just quite enjoy it. It's a little bit silly, but not in a ridiculous kind of way.
It's deeply satisfying at 2 players, where you just get, because the number of dice you have, the dice port from round to round, so you'll just have your mountain dice, whatever you've drafted, you'll keep that for the next round, re-roll everything. So by the end of the third round, you have fistfuls of dice that you're throwing out onto the table to try and score a lot of points, which is is really good fun. It plays really well at 3 players as well. 4 is also okay. It's just more dice, less dice, and you've got a nice little async power as well that you throw in there from these dwarfs that are mining. So that always adds to the fun. So that's it. That's our first 10 games that are in our collective top 100, and we may see some overlaps as the games go, as we go deeper into the list, probably. So let us know what you think. What games have you got that fit in this little section of gaming joy of your top 50 list? We'd be interested to know that. Let us know in the comments below. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, do the subscribing, and stay in touch and see what happens in the next one. So we're going to be doing more of these. There'll be another 9 of these videos coming. We'll see where we get to next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you later. Bye.